The ocean was calm that morning, so calm it seemed like the world was holding its breath. The horizon glowed faintly golden, as if the sun itself was rising slower just to savor the quiet beauty of dawn. A sleek, white luxury yacht sliced through the still water, its decks polished so brightly they seemed to shine against the sun. Laughter spilled from its passengers, sharp, pointed, and ugly. At the edge of the deck stood a woman. Her name was Elena. She wore a beige dress, simple and unadorned, its fabric dancing with the sea breeze. While the others clutched champagne glasses and boasted about investments and inheritances, Elena leaned quietly against the railing, eyes fixed on the horizon. Her hair, long and dark, flowed like a banner in the wind. She didn't belong here, or at least, that's what they thought. She looks like she came straight out of a thrift store, sneered a woman draped in pearls. Maybe she's someone's charity guest, another chuckled. The cruel remarks rippled through the crowd. A man in a designer suit tilted his head, smirking. Wrong yacht, sweetheart, the ferry to the mainland is that way. The laughter that followed was sharp, cutting. Elena said nothing. She didn't bow her head, didn't return the insult. She simply stood still, serene, her gaze stretching beyond them all, toward the endless sea. It was this silence, this refusal to break, that angered them more than any retort. But what they couldn't see was the ocean's memory. The sea never forgets. It carries echoes of sacrifice, whispers of courage, and respect carved into its very waves. And Elena was no stranger to that memory. Before I carry you further into this unforgettable tale, let me pause for just a moment. If stories like this, ones that stir the heart and stay with you long after they end, speak to your soul, then you'll find a home here. Subscribe to Soul Touch Stories, where every tale is more than just words, it's a journey into the deepest parts of what it means to be human. The mockery continued, until suddenly, the sound of laughter began to fade, not because anyone stopped speaking, but because something massive was appearing on the horizon. At first it looked like a shadow, a trick of light on the water. But then it grew, rising higher, darker, sharper. The sea itself seemed to bow beneath its weight. Gasps rippled across the yacht. The shadow became a shape, and the shape became unmistakable, a Navy destroyer. Its gray steel hull loomed larger with every second, cutting effortlessly through the waves. Its deck stretched long and imposing, bristling with power. But more striking than the steel were the figures, rows of sailors in crisp white uniforms, lined perfectly across the deck. A hush fell over the yacht. Even the sea breeze seemed to pause. Elena's posture shifted. She stepped forward, her sandals clicking softly against the deck. Slowly, she raised her right hand, fingers precise, arm firm. She saluted. For a heartbeat, the world froze. Then, as though a great chord had been struck, the destroyer answered. In perfect unison, every sailor snapped to attention. Hundreds of arms rose in flawless precision, white gloves against blue sky, a salute so sharp it cut through the air. The sight was overwhelming. The wealthy guests who had mocked her stood paralyzed. One woman's glass slipped from her hand, shattering across the deck. A man's lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. The sound of their arrogance was gone, replaced by the thunderous silence of awe. The destroyer didn't just pass by. It slowed, aligning itself with the yacht, as though the sea itself demanded the moment be honored. Who is she? Someone whispered, voice trembling. Elena's eyes glistened as she held her salute. Memories flooded her, each one vivid as the sun's glare on the water. She had been them once, those sailors. She had worn the same uniform, stood on those same decks, facing storms and battles most of these yacht passengers couldn't imagine. Years ago, she had commanded her own crew. She wasn't just an officer, she had been their leader, their shield, their anchor in the chaos of war. Her mind carried her back to that night, the ambush. A hostile force had cornered her ship in narrow waters. Fire rained down, alarms screamed, smoke filled the air. Her crew had looked to her, eyes wide with fear and trust. In that moment, she had to choose, save herself or save them. She ordered the evacuation. She stayed behind. Steering the ship herself, she diverted its path, drawing enemy fire away from the lifeboats. The heat, the smoke, the roar, it all came back to her in waves. When she finally abandoned ship, her body was broken, scarred. But her crew, they lived, every last one of them. Elena never sought recognition. When she retired, she did so quietly, fading into a world that measured worth by money and gowns. But the sea remembered, and so did those who had served under her, who passed her story like a sacred flame. Now, here, In the presence of her mockers, the sea itself had risen to salute her again. The destroyer's sailors held their salute, their faces solemn, their stance unwavering. The yacht passengers, by contrast, stood trembling. The man who had ridiculed her dress tried to hide his shaking hands. The pearl-draped woman bit her lip until it bled. Then, something remarkable happened. The yacht's captain, a Navy veteran himself, stepped forward. His weathered eyes shone with tears as he snapped his hand into a salute, facing Elena. The silence grew heavier. Slowly, awkwardly, the businessman who owned the yacht raised his hand too. His salute was clumsy, hesitant, but it was an admission of something he couldn't deny. One by one, the others followed. Hands lifted to brows, uncertain but genuine, until the entire yacht stood in salute. Those who had laughed now humbled, their arrogance shattered by truth. Elena lowered her hand. The destroyer's crew held theirs a moment longer. Then, in flawless synchronization, they dropped them and turned sharply, their discipline echoing like thunder. Slowly, the colossal ship began to drift past, leaving the yacht in its shadow. The waves rocked gently, as if the ocean itself whispered, "Remember." Elena turned to the guests, their faces pale, their pride crushed. She didn't speak in anger. She didn't need to. Her voice was calm, steady, carrying more weight than steel. "Respect," she said softly. "It isn't bought, it isn't worn, it's earned, through sacrifice, through service, through honor." No one replied. Some lowered their eyes, others fought tears. As the sun sank lower, the destroyer vanished into the horizon, but its presence lingered like a ghost. The yacht continued its journey in silence. Elena stood at the railing, the wind on her face, her thoughts far from the people around her. She thought of her crew, of their laughter, their fear, their courage. She thought of those she lost. She didn't smile often, but that evening, she did. Because she knew now, without a doubt, that their memory lived on. My friends, if this story moved you, if you believe in honoring those whose courage often goes unseen, I invite you to support Soul Touch Stories. Like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so that these stories of sacrifice and truth can continue to reach hearts around the world. The yacht's glittering lights flickered to life as night descended, but nothing could outshine what had happened at sea. The wealthy guests returned to their world of marble floors and chandeliers, but they would never forget the day the ocean itself saluted a woman in a beige dress. And perhaps, years later, when they told the story, they would leave out their mockery. They would say only, "I was there, when the destroyer saluted her." For true honor cannot be bought, only earned. And sometimes, the waves themselves rise to remind us.